Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Basically, I just wanted to reintroduce myself and restart my story. This was the same story that I told during the Yak Retreat Yourself Ontario retreat where I got to be a peer supporter to a new group of young adult cancer thrivers, and I was given the opportunity to share my story during that weekend. This is it, my real cancer story. So I remember when I was diagnosed, it was November 21st, 2014. It was actually my sister's birthday. I remember sitting in the doctor's office with my mom. We had already had a bunch of tests done at this point to kind of determine what kind of cancer that I had. And as the doctor was telling me, okay, so you have blood cancer, you have Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it's stage 3, my mom started to slowly bend over. And as she started to bend over, both the doctor and I were like, "Are you okay?" And she just face planted forward, totally fainted, passed out. And then the doctor had to call a code blue. All these nurses came running in. I'm just picturing it right now. If you could picture my mom, she's like 5'9", she's pretty tall. And all these little Filipino nurses came in, and they were all very small, and they're trying to lift her onto the bed and take off her boot and roll up her arm to put an IV in, and she's just like a limp noodle. And it was really funny at the beginning because I was like, "Mom, you're taking away my moment of glory, how could you?" And she was like, "I'm so sorry." And it's something that we laugh about to this day. And I think that that's really important, that you're able to laugh about things like that, because the following things that were to take place were not as enjoyable. So that was something that we really, although it was bad, it was something that kind of I guess brought us together during that hard time. So basically, after my cancer diagnosis, I just accepted that I had cancer. I didn't allow myself to feel anything, and I was very matter of fact, "Oh, I had cancer. Okay, what's next?" I was in my 4th year of university, and I was really determined to stay in school and continue working throughout that time period, because that was the only way I really knew how to deal with it. I guess I tried to act tough and put on this hard exterior where I was like, "Okay, yeah, I have cancer, but everything's fine. I'm gonna be fine. I'm just gonna be doing my treatments, going to school, whatever." And I think that having that mindset made it really hard for people to feel like they could say things to me, for people to be able to help me, and for me to be able to help myself. I ended up putting up a lot of walls, and I kept my friends from helping me because I didn't want to expose them to this kind of hell that I was now living in. I didn't want them to see me in this light, and I wanted to protect them, but by doing so, I kind of fucked up our relationship a little bit for a while, because I removed them from the equation. And although it was for good intentions at first, later on it was realized that it didn't help anyone for me to do that. And I developed a little bit of issues, because I was like, "Well, you guys were never there for me." But then I realized I was the person who never allowed them to be there. I really didn't want to feel anything, and pushing people away was part of how I accomplished not feeling anything. Looking back, I can't really recall any of the emotions or thoughts or feelings that I had, and that makes me really sad. I don't want to relive those emotions, but at the same time, I'm trying to remember how I felt so I can heal and move forward. And I'm grieving for my cancer self in a way. I'm wanting to embrace those emotions, but I have no context to them anymore. So it's very interesting, when I do have these emotional breakdowns, I really don't know why. I cried myself to sleep the other night. I have no idea why. I was just feeling really emotional, because I'm so removed from when I was doing my treatment that I don't really know what's making me feel this way anymore. Overall, it's just really upsetting. I don't know how else to say it. When I look back at my treatments and the time I was going through cancer, I remember the clinical parts of it, the appointments, the medication, the trying to balance school and my cancer treatments at the same time, but I don't remember what was actually going through my head at all. The entire cancer experience was really surreal for me. Before I was diagnosed in November, I started having really bad pains in my chest in October. One day I came home from school and I was vacuuming behind the TV because something had fallen off a shelf and broken. So I was at this odd angle trying to vacuum, and I felt this tear and rip in my chest. And I remember the next day I was at the movies with my friends, and as soon as I sat down in the seat, I couldn't breathe. I was like shallow breathing the whole time. I had to sit on this weird angle, and it felt like my chest was being ripped in half, and you could actually hear the noise that my lungs were making. It sounded like a water bottle being crunched, and you could hear that by just sitting across from me in a chair. I originally thought that I had just pulled a muscle behind my lung because of where the pain was and the sound it was making, and because I had trouble breathing. But then when I went to the hospital to get x-rays, the doctor said there was nothing there. And they were like, we don't really know what's causing this, but we'll send this to radiology and they'll take a look and we'll let you know if you find anything. I remember my mom and I thinking that, oh, maybe I had pneumonia in some kind of weird form, and she wanted me to like rest and like take it easy, but of course I was like 21 and I was just like, you know, doing my thing, going out, went out for Halloween, and then I went out to some parties, and then shortly after that is when shit hit the fan. So after my diagnosis and my mom had her code blue, like I said, I ended up getting diagnosed with stage 3 classical Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I had tumors all along my chest, all along my collarbone in my chest, and also a couple down by my spleen. I did 7 months of ABVD chemotherapy, and then I did 1 month of radiation following that. I remember one of my tumors was right in the middle of my chest, like right here. It was 8 centimeters big, and then I had a couple of 5 centimeter ones and a couple of smaller ones that basically just went across my collarbone. So most of my tumors were. During my treatment, I had a lot of upper body pain, and I needed like a lot of pain medication and morphine to basically make it possible for me to get out of bed because I was in so much pain. And I don't really know if it was because that's where my cancer was, so that's where all of the drugs were kind of like, I guess, like aiming to. I don't really understand that part, but I had like all up and down my arms pain, all throughout my back, my chest, and I was just in constant like agony. Like my muscles felt like they were being like ripped out of me or sliced up. It was awful. And then because I was on steroids as well during my treatment, I gained a lot of weight, which created a whole other issue of body image shit that I had previously gotten over when I was younger and was pretty happy with my body and my lifestyle, and then all of this hit again. I gained about 20 pounds and it really just fucked me up. So after my ABV treatment was finished, I had a couple months off in the summer, and I went back in the fall of 2015 to have a follow-up scan and to see how well the treatment did. And during that, I found out that my cancer was actually back, and it was no longer Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it was actually a mutated form of gray zone lymphoma. From my understanding and my research, is in itself a mutated combination of different types of blood cancer. And so I was then re-diagnosed with this gray zone lymphoma right before I went on a trip to New York, and almost exactly 1 year from my original diagnosis. And at this point I was really just pissed off. I went through all of this treatment only to find out that it didn't work, and that I had to go through another form of treatment, which included a stem cell transplant. The new tumors that I had were located on the right side of my chest between my heart and my lung, and I think I had about 2 or 3 smaller tumors that were about the size of grapes, but because of their location, it made doing biopsies and treatments much harder. I'm not going to get into the specifics of the stem cell transplant because that is a lot of information, but essentially I had 4 months of chemotherapy and then a week of high dose chemotherapy and then my stem cell transplant, followed by another month of radiation. I was a really bad person to be around. I will admit I was a first class bitch. I was angry. I had all of these hatred feelings towards myself and my family and my friends and my cancer, and I didn't know how to deal with it, so I didn't deal with it. I have a lot of regret about that. Looking back, I can say that my family and I dealt with the practicality of cancer. We dealt with the appointments, we dealt with the treatments, we dealt with getting me the right food to eat, kind of reworking my schedule so I could still go to school, but we didn't deal with the emotional trauma of it. And that's something that I have a lot of regret about. I felt like I took away that opportunity for my family to really grieve and for us to talk about things because I didn't want to, and that was really selfish of me. And I have a lot of regret about that. I feel like I took this opportunity away from my family and I to really deal with these things in the moment and to bring us closer together. And that's something that I will regret. Sorry. That's something that I'm going to regret for the rest of my life. I realize now that because I didn't deal with my cancer when it was happening and when the emotions were hitting me, I was now losing control of everything in my life. It wasn't until 2017, I remember I was sitting with my mom and I turned to her and I said, I think I have survivor's guilt and I really need to talk to someone about it. And so I made an appointment with my oncologist at Princess Margaret Hospital, and he referred me to a psychologist, and she told me about YAC. That was like a really big transition point for me because it was the first time that I had acknowledged that I needed help into getting help, making connections, and now being part of an amazing young adult cancer community that just really gets it. Basically, I had decided that I was not okay and I needed to deal with it. So in 2017, I traveled to BC with YAC, which is Young Adult Cancer Canada, where I met a group of strangers who helped me start my life over again by being in their presence and their willingness to share the darkest and deepest moments of their lives, their honesty, and just the rawness that we all share together. I've been to 2 retreats now and both were very different, and my first retreat was so emotional and raw, and it will forever mark the moment that I learned that it's okay to not be okay and that this was the way to start your recovery. Also, being brave doesn't mean being positive all the time and not dealing with your emotions. Bravery is about acknowledging that I'm fucked up right now and I need some help and I need to talk about it. And that's something that I didn't recognize until that moment that I was in this group of people who were sharing their stories. Some of them just so heartbreaking but also empowering at the same time. Like, I'm getting chills talking about it. But it's something that I now advocate for, that it's okay to not be okay, and don't push away how you're feeling and your emotions when you're having them and shut people out, because it won't help you when you're into your recovery, because you are then so removed from how you were and how you felt that it puts this distance between you and the people around you. And I know it's easy to say now because a lot of people, I think, I don't know for sure, but from what I've heard and talked with people, the way a lot of people cope is to just not talk about it. And that's not the answer. During my retreat, I found peace in sharing my feelings and my emotions, and I know that I wasn't 100% honest to my full potential all the time, but what I shared was what I needed to share in the moment. And being a part of this new community made me feel safe, and that I could not only talk about these things, but also I was allowed to feel them. So that brings us to 2018, where I started my blog and YouTube channel, like you guys all know, hoping to not only heal myself, like I said, but also helping to provide information on things that I couldn't find or understand when I was sick. So it might just be like emotional things, it might have been like hair care or supplements or food. These are all things that I was constantly researching and that I really couldn't find that much information about for my demographic. And so that was the goal of this platform. Along the way of starting my channel, I found that a lot of other people have reached out to me through Instagram and through my Facebook and through my blog. And I remember this one guy in particular, he messaged me on a day I posted something about it being my 2-year stem cell anniversary, my rebirth day as they call it. And he messaged me on Instagram, he said, I'm going through a stem cell transplant right now, and reading your post made me feel hopeful about my life after cancer, and that there is life after, and there is opportunity, and that I'm worth living and fighting for. And that moment and messages like that I get from people that I interact with make what I'm doing worth it. If I can help one person, then I've accomplished what this channel and this platform was meant to do. It makes me feel honored and that I am on the right path when people do reach out to me and tell me that I helped them through a hard day or a treatment, or they were able to relate to me in some way. And there's nothing like that feeling in the world. And while I was at the second young adult cancer retreat in Ontario, where I was a peer supporter, after I told my story, and even before I told my story, when I was just talking to people throughout the days, I made a lot of connections with people just about like my life, and my willingness to share and my ability to listen to what they had to say, and they could really draw parallels between their life and mine, and that just made me feel really good. So jumping back to June 2016, which was 5 months after my stem cell transplant, right before my university graduation, my oncology team told me that my scans had all come back clean and that I was in remission. This June will mark my 3 years of being in remission, and I'm so grateful to be able to say that and to have been accepted into this community of people that just really get it. And although I'm still dealing with a lot of the guilt and emotions of cancer and with my family and friends, I feel like being honest and talking about things has helped me move forward so much, and I can really never thank Yak enough for that. And also I want to say thank you to myself for just putting myself out there and taking that first step forward. That is basically my cancer story, and talking about it with people makes me feel like I'm also important, which a lot of the times I'm really hard on myself, and I just feel like it doesn't matter what I think or feel. There are worse people out there than me, but cancer isn't a competition, and everyone's story and journey is valid and equally as important and should be shared, and people should listen. So that's all I wanted to say as I'm crying. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being part of this family. I'm sorry this video was so long, but I just needed to like sit down and have a chat. Thank you to Yak, as always, for just introducing me to this community of fucking awesome people. Alright guys, that's it for me today. I am going to go wipe my tears away and make a coffee. Thank you so much for everyone who has taken the time to listen to my story. I know this video has been a little bit long, but it really means a lot to me. Thank you to Yak for just being fucking awesome. If anyone out there is watching this video who has just been diagnosed, or who knows someone, or who's in their recovery or their life after cancer, you're not alone. There are people here to support you, and if you ever want to chat, just send me a message. Follow me on Instagram and my blog. I'm really active on both of those things, and let's connect. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.